Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Well, welcome to another episode. I feel like sometimes I want to start this. Have you ever seen that Saturday Night Live sketch where it's like those two like old ladies and they're doing the radio show and they're like, "How you feeling today?" And they're like, "Just fine." Like they're like super peaceful and mellow.
I've watched a lot of Saturday Night Live, but mainly the recent stuff, so I don't recall that.
It
Is
was
that
Molly
old?
Shannon and I don't know who the other.
So it's old then.
Yeah, like
yeah.
90s stuff.
Oh yeah, no. I tried to go back really far on Hulu and watch them, or on Peacock, whichever one it's on, and I was like, a lot of the stuff that they cover is like current event stuff. So it's like divorced from the actual current event in time. It like was missing for me, so I went to the current stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good show. It's good times. That's
like
what they say.
Good times.
Yeah. Whenever they're like, "Yeah, I just got into knitting this blanket." And the other one goes, "Good times."
Yeah, great times. Who doesn't like knitting a blanket?
I don't.
Me either.
Yeah.
I don't even know how.
Good times. I had a great time not knitting a blanket.
Yeah.
Hey, we're starting a new series, kind of like continuing our trend of picking stories in the Bible or basically just books of the Bible and just starting from chapter 1, verse 1 and just going through it. It's an exciting one. I think that whenever we were talking about this and we tossed out the idea of doing this book, I'd never seen you perk up like that.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite books in all the Bible.
Yeah, so we're going to be going
I've
through.
preached a whole series on it already, but we skipped some stuff here and there, and it probably wasn't as in depth as what we'll be able to do on this.
Yeah.
But I love this book of the Bible because to me, there's probably not a book of the Bible that speaks so clearly to our current cultural moment. I don't think there's anything in the scriptures that speaks this directly and lines up this perfectly as the book of Judges does.
Yeah. So should I get everybody kind of up to speed with what's happening as we get into the book of Judges? Like kind of like what happens after Moses and just like very, very briefly setting it up, like what's happening?
Yeah, so we finished Moses. He dies. He passes the torch to Joshua. Joshua leads the Israelites into the Promised Land. That's what the whole book of Joshua is. We skipped that. Because I'm more passionate about Judges than I am Joshua, just frankly speaking.
I even asked you. I was like, "Hey, should we
Joshua
go
real quick?" No, I'm not going to do Joshua real quick. We can come back to that if we need to. But I was so excited to go to Judges. So, like, that's pretty much what happens, though. They go in, and it's the conquest is what Joshua is. But this is how I like to operate. Judges 1 and 2 essentially is the recap of the whole book of Joshua.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we don't even have to cover the whole thing because we're going to cover it in Judges.
Yeah, so Joshua dies, and like whenever Moses died, he appointed Joshua as the leader, and so whenever Joshua dies, there was no appointment as a leader, and so or a king or a prime minister or anything like that. And so the Israelites are in this like critical place to where they are having to put their trust and rely on God more intensively than they ever have before, because there's nobody that's like kind of like this middleman, so to speak, in between God and the people.
Yeah.
And so this period that we're going to be discussing of Judges, scholars believe it's about 340 years. So just to kind of give you kind of like a scope of like everything that's happening as we discuss through Judges. And so there was no official title or office that was held, and so we see at these moments throughout the book of Judges that God is appointing a leader. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about is this perception of a judge is not like what we think as a judge. Talk a little bit about that and kind of like set us up for this, because we think curly wig, gavel, sitting in the courtroom.
Yeah. So in this in this society, the judge was essentially the leader of the nation. He would weigh in on civil disputes and things like that, like a normal judge would, but he would also be like military commander, kind of just the head of the state, essentially. Mm-hmm. So this is not just like someone who listens to court cases, although that was definitely involved. This is a national leader, and especially in a military sense, they would have a pretty valuable role.
Yeah.
There as well. And so that's when we say judges, making sure that we do have the proper view of that, and that we're not looking at just a, courtroom judge, but literally leader of the nation.
Yeah. And so for the most part, what we see throughout the book of Judges are these people being appointed as the leader, and they're doing the job that has been asked of them for the specific time, and then they just kind of fall back into obscurity almost, which is it's interesting to see kind of like this up and down moments that are happening with different people being asked to lead. But we have to understand like just the time frame of all of this. Yeah. Like people are dying.
Yeah, that's what happens with most of them. They do their job as the judge, bring peace to the nation, and then there's a period of peace afterwards in which it's presumed that at some point during that time of peace, that judge passes away or is, no longer in power or whatnot. But something happens because we see there's a cycle that happens in the book of Judges that, and it's the same cycle that we see a lot in people's lives. Mm-hmm. But what you've pointed out about the lack of a leader is the problem in the whole book of Judges. And it's the problem in anything in life, really. And I know that there's like a segment of the church that hates the term leadership, and that they think, oh, there's no place for leadership in the church. That's a secular business term. And it's like, well, really? I think that people like Abraham, Moses, Joseph, David, Solomon, Jesus, I think that they would all have something to say about, leadership is a secular thing. It's like, no, leadership is appointed by God and is necessary, and we see what happens during the book of Judges to a group of people that are without a leader, without someone to look after them, to lead them, to guide them, which is why leadership is so important. Even in the church and society in general, a lack of leadership, a lack of clear vision will always hurt the people involved. Yeah. It just will. And that's like Moses lists his successor as Joshua, where Joshua does not name a successor. That decision greatly affected the people of Israel during, 340 years of their history. Yeah. Greatly affected them. And then as you're going to see, it all comes down to leadership again. And when we get into the kings, you've got some good kings, and they bring about flourishing for the people of Israel. You've got some really crummy kings that brought about curses and disaster for the people of Israel. Leadership, although, yes, do people abuse leadership in the church? Should leadership in the church be different than leadership in the business sector? Yes, somewhat. But just to say that leadership has no place in the church is a silly statement, especially given the fact that it does appear in at least one of the spiritual gifts list, that God blesses people with the gift of leadership. But the lack of leadership is such a big deal. That's why, like, who we put in positions of power in life, So like elected officials, pastors, whoever it is, like whoever, if you have a say over who you put in places of leadership, that's why they should be godly people.
Yep.
That's why they should be people that fear the Lord, because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, which is what we're learning on Sundays. Like, leadership absolutely matters, because if you get bad leaders, lead societies, lead churches, lead businesses into very bad places.
Yeah.
And the lack of a leader is, we're going to see it over and over and over again here in Judges, is going to cause some problems.
Yeah. So the people of Israel, the Israelites, are in the Promised Land, and they're starting to. You start to see the different tribes go into like different areas. It's all relatively close to each other, but they're starting to go into these different areas, and they're starting to fight and trying to conquer these little areas and stuff like that. And so there's a couple of things that I want you to address because of this. And one of the things that God commanded was that he take out everybody that was living there. Okay? So one of the things was this spiritual genocide type of topic that was going through here, and then also the disobedience of them not doing what God had asked them to do.
Yeah. So let's cover both sides of that, and that's the purpose of Judges 1 and 2. Essentially, it is recapping what took place during the conquest of the book of Joshua.
Yeah.
And you see two different things that we really have to point out. First off, what actually happened, and then second off, what people think actually happened. So interestingly enough, in Judges 1 and 2, we find out over and over that Israel did not listen to the command that God gave them to go and to drive out the people from this land, right? They were to drive them out because these people would be a thorn in the side of Israel if they were to live alongside them. God knew that for them to inhabit the promised land, if they did not get rid of all those idol worshipers, the people that would sacrifice children and all this heinous stuff that the people in Canaan did, if those people were not fully driven out of the land, those people would have an effect on Israel trying to live in the land. And that is such a powerful principle for all of us that are trying to follow God right now. Maybe you're trying to follow God and you keep failing over and over and over and over and over, and you can't figure out why. A lot of it's probably because you have the wrong people around you. You have people like if you're an alcoholic, you probably shouldn't hang out with drinkers.
Yep.
It's probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, I'm going to the bar to witness tonight.
No, you're not.
No. Don't be dumb.
Yeah.
Like, don't be dumb. You got the wrong people around you.
Yeah.
I
used to say stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like whenever.
How'd I end up drunk? Because you were at the bar with everyone else that was getting drunk.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to go on. How did Israel, throughout the rest of Israel's history, from this point forward, they're going to struggle with idolatry because they did not drive out the people that were idol worshipers from this land. They are going to struggle with that because they had it all around them.
Yeah.
Like single people, you want to live sexually pure in your life. Don't date people that tempt you to have sex then.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how this keeps happening. Well, y'all two shouldn't be in the back seat of a car to begin with. You got to drive in the front seat.
Yeah.
I don't know how this keeps happening to us. Stop going over to his apartment. Stop going over to her apartment. Like, all these little areas of compromise for Israel led to sin, and it's the same for us.
Yeah.
If you do not drive out the things that tempt you, you are going to keep falling to them.
Yep.
Okay? If you have a porn issue, get rid of your computer.
Yeah, get rid of the
I need it for the... No, listen.
Yeah.
You have to wage war against the things that are leading you away from God, or else you will continue to fall to them.
And what people don't understand is like making that decision in your life, it's going to cost you, obviously.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you your relationship. I think that if people are dealing with pornography, you should do something like a Covenant Eyes or something that monitors, and then somebody else gets those
get
notifications.
If you have to,
and it costs monthly monetarily to be able to get those things. But if it's something that you're so fed up with, then you've got to understand that there's going to be some things, and it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you friendship, but at the sake of what? Like,
if you can't stop spending money, like we can even get away from the sexual stuff. If you can't stop spending money, get rid of take your cards away from yourself. Delete them off of your phone.
Yeah.
Don't have payment stuff on your phone where you can just buy whatever you want. It's all, like every decision that we make. If you want to find victory in those areas of life, you have to drive that stuff out far away from you, because its proximity to you will cause you to fall.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what happened with Israel. No, check this out. In chapter, where's it at? I got it in my notes right here. In chapter 1, listen to this. This is amazing. The Lord was with the men of Judah. They took possession of the hill country, but they were unable to drive the people from the plains because they had iron chariots. Now, wait a second. The Lord had already promised Israel that he was going to be the one fighting all these battles. So am I to believe that the Lord could not take on the iron chariots, that he is actually the one that is even responsible for the fact that they have iron in the first place?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's an excuse. Oh, I just couldn't do it. We couldn't possibly not live together. You know, we're saving money. Like, it's just excuses. No, it's not what. And here's for chapter 1 and chapter 2. Here's what's happening. It's never about what you can't do. It's actually about what you won't do.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, I can't stop spending money. No, you won't stop spending money. We can't stop having sex. No, you won't stop having sex. I can't stop drinking. No, you won't stop drinking. I can't stop lying. No, you won't stop lying.
Yeah.
These are just excuses. The Lord has already said that he would fight the battle on your behalf, but you're just finding an excuse. I mean, how funny is that? Sorry, God, did you not see they had iron chariots? We can't win there. And then it goes on, verse 21. The Benjamites, however, failed to dislodge the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. To this day, the Jebusites live with the Benjamites. They were supposed to drive them out. Sorry, God, it was just too hard, so we made them our neighbors.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to work well. How about verse 27? Manasseh did not drive out the people of Bethshan or Tanakh or Dor or Ibleam or Megiddo and their surrounding settlements, for the Canaanites were determined to live in the land. Sorry, God, these people were just too determined.
Yeah.
We just couldn't get rid of them. That's 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 33, 34 to 35. Every one of these groups of people that were supposed to go in and take control of the land and drive people out.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. No, that's not true. They wouldn't do it. It's hard work.
Yeah.
It's hard work to be faithful to God. It's hard work to go and to take what God says is yours whenever it costs you stuff, when it costs you relationships. Like maybe you've been dating someone for 5 years, and because you want to be faithful to the Lord, it's like, sorry, we gotta split up. It's going to cost you something. Oh, you're not going to be able to buy everything it is that you want. You're not going to be able to talk however you want, look at whatever you want. Whatever it is, it's going to cost you something. But if you won't drive those areas of compromise out, they will set up camp right next to you, and they will be your downfall for the rest of your life. Can you imagine? Because think about this. They are in the promised land. They are where God promised them to be. That's supposed to be the land flowing with milk and honey. It's supposed to be God's best for them. And they'll never experience God's best while living in the land that God gave to them because they did not do what God told them to do once they got there.
Yeah.
It's craziness. Like, you got saved, so now you're supposed to live in freedom, but yet you ain't going to live in freedom because you let all the things that enslave you, you let them still hang out in your house. You didn't drive them out and get them as far away from you as possible. And so it's not that you can't do it, it's actually that you won't do it.
You want to hear a crazy story? So Erica and I, we met in college, and we started dating in March of 2009, the March 9th or March 8th. And by April 26th, that's whenever she showed up at my work with a positive pregnancy test. And it just kind of flipped my whole world upside down, both of our worlds upside down. And we had a lot of hard conversations, especially having to tell my parents because they subscribe to the belief that we should be abstinent until we are married, and then you can enjoy sex within the confines of marriage, which is perfectly fine, which is normal. I think that's a godly way of thinking about marriage and how you should go about it.
Yeah.
So having that difficult conversation, telling my parents, hey, you got another grandbaby on the way. I actually told my mom because I didn't feel like telling my dad. I was like, you can tell Dad. But anyways, we made the decision that we're going to start going to church and giving our life, to God and trying to get our life back on track. One of the things that happened is we met with a counselor, a biblical counselor, and just kind of like helping set us up for success. And the first thing he asked is, he said, are y'all two living together? And of course we said yes. And he said, before we move forward with anything, like, one of y'all has to move out. So having to have another conversation if Erica can go live with my parents. She lived with my parents until we got married. And that was for 7 months maybe.
Yeah.
And but we knew that we wanted to do it right. And that was a big strain on our relationship.
Yeah.
Because none of her family lived in town, and she's living at a place with my parents, which is a super strange situation. But we knew that if we wanted to be where we wanted to be, like if we wanted to start moving in that direction, there was going to have to be some hard decisions that we had to give up, that we had to sacrifice, that we understood was going to put a strain on our relationship. And we had to get back to like essentially dating each other. And she would have, like, we put a curfew in place. Like, nothing that anybody else said. It says, obviously, we don't do well if we're by ourselves. So at a certain point in time, like, you've got to be back at the house, and not to be controlling or anything like that, but to set up limitations and safeguards for our relationship.
This is part of what we've been talking about on Sundays.
Yeah.
The difference between morality and wisdom. That's the difference, right? We, like, to hear you say, we put up safeguards, not because anyone told us we had to.
Yeah.
But because we wanted God's best.
Yeah.
It was the wise thing to do, to not live together, and to, hey, at this time, you're going to go home, because after this time, we know what happens. Okay?
Yeah.
And so that's so wise, and most people won't make that decision because they feel like they're leaning into some sort of legalism, right? And it's like, no, you're leaning into wisdom, and that is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because the truth of the matter is, no matter what area of life we're talking about, it's never that you can't. It's simply that you won't.
Yeah.
Like, it really is. Like, here at church, how many people tell us they can't serve? They can't serve. We can't do it. That is not true. Because when you say you can't, when someone else is doing it, you devalue them.
Yeah.
What is it about you that can't, but yet they can? Why not just be more honest and say, I won't do that. Yeah. I'm not going to do that. Or people, hey, when it comes to giving to the church, we can't. No. That devalues everyone that does. Just be honest with us and with the Lord and say, we won't. We just will not go without, so the way the church can move forward. We just won't do it. It's not a can't. It is a won't. I think at the very least you should be honest about that. At the very least. And now look at God's response to all these, like, oh, we can't. And in chapter 2, he comes along and he says, I brought you up out of the land of Egypt, the land I swore to give your forefathers. And he said, I'll never break my covenant with you. And you're not supposed to make a covenant with these people. You're supposed to break down their altars. You've disobeyed me. Why have you done this? Now, therefore, I tell you that I will not drive them out before you. They will be thorns in your side, and their gods will be a snare to you. So God goes, because you didn't drive them out, like I told you to, they're going to be a problem for you for as long as you're in the land.
Mm-hmm.
Like until you get rid of it completely, it's going to be a problem for you. Until you decide to go and wage war against the Canaanites in your life, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And what I really want to point out, because this is a part of the Bible that people are really critical of, because they see what God led the Israelites to do as some sort of weird genocide, mass murder type stuff. And this truthfully is just not what's actually going on. As you can see from the language here, this was about driving out idol worshipers, and it was about driving them out. Right? It wasn't necessarily go slaughter absolutely everybody, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
When you see that sort of language in Hebrew writing, a lot of that is like hyperbole. You see it all throughout the Jewish culture. It's like if you and I were talking about like, oh, we demolished them in basketball or whatever. We didn't really demolish them. We won.
Yeah.
Right, we took care of business.
I murdered that sandwich. No, you just ate it.
Yeah, and that's what's going on. A lot of times that you see that sort of language, we drove out, like, yada, 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 we killed everybody. It's like, no, that's not necessarily the case. Plus, they were conquering cities. Most of the people didn't live in cities. They lived outside the cities. It was the military that would live in the cities that they were going after. So when people start going like, oh, this was genocide, God is terrible, Christians are awful. Now, I'm not going to say there weren't some idiots that took stuff like the Canaanite conquest and decided to go have the Crusades we've got some idiots in our past as Christians.
Yeah.
That's true.
That wasn't God. That wasn't God.
That wasn't
ordained.
God, though. Yeah, that wasn't God,
wasn't
though.
Orchestrated.
That was idiots going out and doing their own thing and then blaming God. So that's not what's going on here.
Yeah.
But you can see from chapter 2, he says, you're not supposed to make a covenant with the people, and you're supposed to break down their altars. Because this was a lot more about driving out idol worship than it was killing people. And I can't even say innocent people, because if the Israelites did go in and wage war on the Canaanites, God is doing the same thing to them that later on in history he will use other nations to do to Israel.
Yeah.
Because they are acting as instruments of God's judgment. Because the Canaanites, the people that lived in the land of Canaan, by all accounts of history, were despicable people.
Yeah.
Horrible, awful, nasty people that there's no way that, like, if you're going, well, God just sent his people in there to go after these innocent people. No, these are child murderers.
Yeah.
These are
the things that
evil.
are listed that they would do are just super, like, highly immoral. They were addicted to, like, all different types of sex. Like you said, they were child murderers, and they were extreme idolaters, idolatrous people.
Yeah.
And so
so the notion that, like, God went and killed innocent people is ridiculous, right? Because they're not innocent by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
Now, to also say that it was genocide is ridiculous. That's to not understand ancient Hebrew writing whatsoever.
Yeah.
That is to be totally out of context. Like Christians in the Bible have come under fire for that a lot, especially from people that just don't actually understand.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if that is what happened, I'm going to tell you, God is well within his rights as the giver of life to take life as he sees fit.
Yeah.
If it's in protection of people, right? Like, so if these are despicable people and God wipes them off the face of the earth, because he's not going to allow them to inflict harm any longer, then God is well within his rights as a good and just and fair God to remove that evil from the face of the earth. He is well within his rights as well.
Yeah.
Even though I think what took place is greatly exaggerated for, atheist purposes to try to devalue the scriptures and faith in general. That's just not what happened. The other part of this story in chapters 1 and 2 before we even get to our first judge that really is sad to me, especially as a dad, is when you get to verse 6 in chapter 2 and beyond from there. It starts talking about the next generation. Like in verse 10, after the whole generation had been gathered to their father, so after this whole generation of the conquest had passed away, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. A whole generation grew up not even knowing about the works of God and how God had set their people free, of how God had sent quail and manna in the desert. Like a whole generation grew up not knowing God, and what did that generation do? Turned even further away from the Lord, and leaned right into all the idols that their parents left for them. And so that's the other side. If you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, if you won't fight those battles in your own life, all you're going to do is leave them there for your kids to fight.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. Because they didn't get rid of the Canaanites, their children struggled with idolatry their whole life. Then their grandchildren did. Look, if you don't deal with your alcohol issue, you're leaving that there for your kids to deal with. You don't deal with your financial issues, you're leaving that there for your kids to deal with.
Yeah.
You want to live with your boyfriend or girlfriend with your kid in the house? What in the world do you think that they're going to do?
They're going to mimic it.
Yeah, they're going to mimic it because you won't fight the battle.
Yeah.
Now to drive it out, you are leaving it for them to deal with.
You have this quote by J.D. Greear highlighted in your notes.
Yeah.
And it just says, small areas of disbelief produce large areas of disaster. And that's what you see generationally. God, I can't imagine. I mean, being a former alcoholic, it's one of those things that I'm glad that I have completely eliminated it from my life because I saw what it did to my life.
Yeah.
And if my kids were exposed to something like that, even if it was just a small amount, then it could lead to something disastrous for my kids. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that drinking is necessarily wrong. I just don't want that door to be even remotely open for them to entertain the idea of something that I know can be disastrous in their lives to where it just takes a hold of them and it's the only thing they think about. And then they begin to lie and cheat and steal to be able to pay for this type of habit and live the same exact life that I live. Like, I don't. And it's funny because, like, my parents didn't do that. It was just something that I fell into. But I don't want it to carry over to the next generation.
Exactly.
Like, I want to be obedient in those areas. Whenever God says, hey, you should get rid of it, then you should get rid of it. Could you imagine something like just for your own kids?
Yeah.
Like, it's like we're doing everything to set them up for success in every single area of life. And if you leave something unattended, then it's something that they struggle with or whatever, then it's disastrous.
Yeah, there's this really ignorant idea that I think some people maybe they'll never put words to it, but this is what they're practically doing is that somehow they think that their kids are going to just magically get beyond where they are spiritually.
Yeah.
And that's just not going to happen.
No.
Like, what you do as a parent and as a grandparent will bleed onto your kids and onto your grandkids, and it will be their battle to fight if you do not take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the facts of the matter. Like, I don't know a parent that's in church today that goes, that wouldn't say, man, I want my kids to be even better off spiritually than I am.
Yeah.
They're not just going to accidentally get there.
How do you expect your kids to get there if you're not reading the Bible in an open area? It may be distracting, but if your kids are not seeing the lifestyle that you want them to live, they're not going to live that lifestyle.
Yeah. If you go to church once a month, do you really think that your kids are going to go 3 times a month when it's their time?
Yeah.
No, it's going to keep getting worse.
Yeah.
If you don't read the Bible at all, you think your kids are just I know there's stories in our youth ministry and stuff of kids that have surpassed their parents in faith, but that is the exception.
Yeah.
That is not the rule. That is not how it normally happens. If you want your kids to get somewhere spiritually, you got to get there first. You got to go fight those battles.
Same with everything.
Yeah.
If I want my boys, whenever they get old enough and they get married, to be respectful and love their future wives with everything they have, if they don't see me doing that with my wife, Erica, then they don't have a good guide. They don't have like this lighthouse that's pointing them in the direction.
Yeah, they're not going to stumble into that.
No.
They're just not. It's intentional
especially in this
decisions.
culture, in this day and age, with everything competing for your. I mean, with the TikToks and the YouTubes and the social media, and all these different things of people just essentially getting likes and views because they're being rude or disrespecting people.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be that beacon in your household if you want your kids to be better. You have to show them. You have to live it out. You have to believe it. You have to instill confidence in them. You can't expect your kid to be confident and walk around and be sure of themselves if all you're doing is telling them, hey, you're so stupid for leaving your clothes on the floor and for peeing all over the toilet seat and not flushing and you're not doing this and you're not putting your groceries up. No, if you're not showing them what to do and how to do it, then you can't expect them to do those things because they're never going to learn on their own.
This sort of stuff just doesn't happen accidentally. And that's what happened here in this story. The first generation of Israel in the Promised Land didn't take care of their business. So they left it for the next generation.
Yeah.
And what we're going to find out, they left it for every single generation since then. Every single generation has been fighting the same fight now.
Yeah.
Because they didn't take care of it when the Lord told them that he would already have taken care of it. And that's what sets the scene literally for the rest of the book of Judges. Because what you're going to see, there's a cycle that happens. Israel turns their back on God, which as we've now seen in chapter 2.
Yeah.
That next generation grew up not knowing the works of God. They turned their back on God.
Yeah.
Eventually, because of that, God allows one of these neighboring nations that they have not driven out, that they have not dealt with, to come and to overtake them. They come and overtake them. They are used as an act of God's judgment against Israel. They come and oppress them, and eventually the oppression gets so bad that Israelites will finally cry out to God, but normally it takes many, many years of oppression before they do that. God hears their cries just the same as he did when they were in Egypt. He sends a savior. He sends a judge that overthrows the oppression. But then after things are going well for long enough, they repeat the cycle. They turn their back on God. They get oppressed by another nation. God raises up a judge, peace and harmony, until they turn their back on God again. And this is exactly what we tend to see in the human condition as well.
Yeah.
Right? We have a tendency in our life, things are going really good, turn our back on God, things get bad, oh God, please help me. Then things are good for a couple days, turn our back on God, go back doing our own thing, oh God, please help me. Comes and rescues you again. How many times has that cycle played out in our life? And that's exactly what happens. Like the first judge that we talk about, he's a very short story.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Othniel. And really all we see is that cycle. The people turned their back on God. They went after these idols that they didn't cast out of the land, that they didn't drive out. So for that, they got oppressed. God raises up Othniel as the first judge. He leads them to overthrow the oppressor, and they get peace in the land for 40 years.
Yeah.
And that right there is going to be the story that's going to play over and over and over and over and over throughout. I think the book of Judges talks about 12 different judges, and that's what's going to happen over and over and over is God will raise these people up.
Yeah.
They will bring peace for a short time. And this is why Jesus is the better judge, because he doesn't bring just peace for 40 years. He doesn't just bring peace for 80 years or whatever the time frame was in the book of Judges. He brings peace once and for all to our heart. I mean, that's a permanent peace. It's not just temporary. And so that's why I love the book of Judges, because it does show the human condition, but it also shows the remedy for the human condition, pointing past the imperfect judges to the perfect judge, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And the importance of obedience.
It does, man.
I feel like that's what we
Galatians
talked a lot
chapter
about
6.
that in Exodus and the story of Moses. Just the importance of obedience. Like, you miss out, and then there's always going to be consequences and problems because of your disobedience.
When Paul writes in Galatians chapter 6 that you reap what you sow, what he is writing about is a fact of nature.
Yeah.
This is how God designed the created order, that what you plant, you receive back. You put an apple tree or apple seed in the ground, you get an apple tree. You plant a peach seed, you get peaches. That's what comes out. If you plant good, you get good. You plant bad, you are going to reap that. And that is not, again, that is independent of God's forgiveness or anything like that, because God's forgiveness does not release you from consequences.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, me and you both still have consequences to this day for our disobedience to God in our past.
Yep.
Are we forgiven for it? 100%. God has washed that with his blood and made me new. Do I still have consequences from what I did when I was in college?
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely do. There is no escaping the law of sowing and reaping.
Yep.
So when I say maybe some people need a different motivator, right? When it comes to obedience, they're like, yeah, man, I don't know. God just seems like so oppressive, man. I just don't want to. I don't want to do what he says, or whatnot. Well, what if following God? It will actually go better for you.
Yeah.
Life will hurt less.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's the motivator people need. Like, look how hard Israel has had it. Especially, go read the Old Testament. They had it hard. They were supposed to have it so good.
Yeah.
And they missed out on it over and over and over and over and over again because they just wouldn't listen to God.
Yeah.
Why are we so stinking stubborn?
Yeah. It's good stuff just to stew on and just always just be reminded of. It's we talked a little bit about it in our Bible study this morning. It's just we just got to be obedient.
Yep.
Golly. And yes, it's sometimes doing the things that God has asked us to are going to be difficult, and it's going to be a struggle.
It's not always fun.
No, it's not always fun. It's not always rainbows and butterflies.
It's going to cost, but at the end of the day, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yes, because of eternity and Jesus and all that, but yes, also because it just will make your life better.
Yeah.
It just will.
Yep.
Could you imagine being the type of person that doesn't cause conflict in your relationships because you love people the way that Jesus loved them? And you didn't have to sit here and worry about every room that you walk into, whether people are talking about you or not? That's freedom.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful life. You don't, because you didn't run your mouth off at somebody, you don't have to worry about the repercussions of it. Who's sitting here going, oh, man, God's so oppressive, doesn't want me to put people in their place? No, he's saving you a lot of headaches.
Yeah.
A lot of headaches, man. Just listen to him. Do what he says. Because he's the author of life, he knows how to get the most out of it. He's leading you to a place of less frustration, less anger, less regret, less shame, less having to say sorry. Why not just take that path? But and again, I say it because I live it. I know how often I step in a landmine and go, well, that was freaking stupid, Scott. And now you're going to have to deal with that for the next week.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. You said something that you shouldn't have. You reacted in a way that you shouldn't have. You were a little bit too sharp with someone when you shouldn't have been. You said something to your kid that you wish you hadn't. Now you feel shame and regret and all this. Because I've been there so much, I can speak on pretty good authority.
Yeah.
When I get it right, my life is so much better.
Yep.
I enjoy my life so much more. And the times that I turn my back on God and go, sorry, I'm going to take this my own way, it sucks.
Yep.
It sucks. It never turns out good.
Yeah.
And my hope, and this has been my hope since I got saved and started preaching, is that people would use my experience of stupidity so the way they wouldn't have to go figure it out themselves. Right?
I say the same thing, too.
Don't
make the mistakes I did.
Let me tell you about the stupid crap that I did, and then you don't have to go make those mistakes.
Yeah.
I've already made them for you, and I can tell you that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. And so I hope throughout all of my ministry, if just one person will listen to me and go, yeah, I decided not to do that because I heard how it destroyed your life, it will all be worth it.
Yep. Good stuff, man. I'm excited about this. Excited about Judges. And now on to your second favorite book of the Bible, the mystery meat.
Oh, gosh. I'd rather do a whole potluck on the book of Ezekiel than answer this question.
That's for a later time. But today, you get the mystery meat question. All right. All right, cool. If you could have a lifetime supply of anything, what would it be?
Money.
Yeah. Would it be money?
Yeah. Yeah. But like in a healthy way. I've got to preach about money on Sunday, so I got to be careful.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, if I had to choose a lifetime supply of something tangible, it would probably be money because money could buy any of the other tangible things that I would like.
Yes.
Intangible, like if I wanted to go super spiritual on it, I would like a lifetime supply of love and acceptance. No. Or a close second, and this will sound ridiculous. Have you ever tried those unicorn Little Debbie cakes that Belinda buys for the First Impressions team?
Yes.
With the strawberry cake?
Yes.
I would take those for life, too.
Yeah.
Those things.
So much joy.
When I eat one of those, I do feel like a unicorn.
It's happiness in a pastry for sure.
The strawberry cake is so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do that too for life, but probably money, just because it would buy a bunch of those, as well as other stuff.
I think if I had to pick something that feels like a lifetime supply of something that wasn't money but still practical, because money, super practical, because you could, like you said, buy anything. I would probably do something like groceries or like gas, like
unlimited gas.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
Yeah,
until they do away with it, and then you're stuck with a stockpile of stuff that doesn't work.
No, it would still work, but
now they're gonna get rid of all of it.
Not in my lifetime. They're not. There's too much money to be had.
That and you're old, so.
Yeah, I know, dude. For real. I woke up this morning and I was feeling. I kind of sat up on the edge of my bed and I was like, man, I feel rickety today. Like I said that like out loud, and Erica's like,
when you start even using the word rickety, you know that you're old.
I caught myself having a conversation about the weather the other day. I was like, I just got to stop this and walk away.
Oh my Lord.
I was like, this is a bad consequence. This is a bad consequence that's gonna plague my children in the future.
You're gonna be on one of those insurance commercials, how not to turn into your parents.
Well, that or like they're just gonna, because everybody's trying to use like younger people to talk about things like heartburn and healthy hearts and stuff like that. So I'm gonna be their next spokesperson for, hey, do you like need your ginkgo biloba or whatever the new thing is? Like, maybe I could be the new diabetes guy. That guy died.
Wilford Brimley?
Yeah, he died a while back.
Well, I hope not, but
I mean, I don't know if he had diabetes, but I could say diabetes. So, all right. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. And you can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.